Video, I want to talk about one more method for solving exponential equations. So this is solving an exponential equation by using substitution and quadratic factoring. So here is an equation that's exponential, and it doesn't seem easy to solve if you try to think about taking the natural log of it, because it's got an e to the 2x, and this is just e to the x, and I'm not sure how that's going to work. But you might be able to notice that there's kind of like a hidden quadratic function here. So remember that this is the same as e to the x squared, right? E to the a power to a power, you multiply powers. So this is like e to the x squared plus 6e to the x minus 7 equals 0. And you might be able to see that quadratic already happening. So if we use substitution, let's go ahead and say let y equal e to the x. So instead of writing e to the x, I'm going to write y instead. So right here where I have e to the x, I'm going to write y, and then right here where I have e to the x, I'm going to write y. So now it's a bona fide quadratic function, right? Y squared plus 6y minus 7 equals 0. So now we can try to figure out, and you could use any variable here besides y. You could use u. A lot of people use u for substitution, but it doesn't matter. Any variable is fine. So here, this would be, let's do our sort of unfoiling thing. So we're looking for two numbers who multiply to be -7 and add to be 6. So I think it should be -7 and +1, right? And that should add up to be, oh, it should be +7 and -1. That was silly. Okay, so +7 and -1 will give me -7 when I multiply, but when I do my middle term, it's going to be +7y minus 1y, which is +6y. Okay, so that equals 0. Very good. So now we have y plus 7 equals 0, or y minus 1 equals 0. So y equals -7 or y equals 1. Now it's time to go back and substitute back our e to the x. So this is saying e to the x equals -7 or e to the x equals 1. So now, when does e to the x equal -7? Well, remember what e to the x looks like on a graph. It looks like this kind of bad graph, but it never gets into negative numbers. That is, you can never raise something to a power and make it negative. So this has no solution. There's no solution here. And then it says, or e to the x equals 1. So here you can do a number of things, but one thing you could do is remember that e to the 0 power equals 1. The other thing you could do is take the natural log of both sides. So you could just do x equals ln of 1. But when you go ahead and put that in your calculator, here we can do it right here, you'll see that the natural log of 1 is 0. So, and you might have also noticed that e to the 0 power is equal to 1, so it should be 0. So x equals 0 would be the solution that you would get from this equation, and it would be the only one. Now potentially there could be two solutions, but in this case there weren't because this one had no solution. But remember, the most important thing to remember here is once you substitute and you have your quadratic equation, you have to substitute this back in and then solve. That's really a key step, because if you put in your answers as -7 or 1, those are absolutely going to be wrong, because the answer is actually that e to the x equals -7 or e to the x equals 1. And so make sure that you do that so that you can actually find the real answers, which are, in this case, no solution and 0. So in the end, just 0. And that is how you solve an exponential equation by using substitution and quadratic factoring.